Still waiting. Oh, వస్తుంది.
Good evening, dear friends. Today, we are honored to welcome and introduce Swami Sahajananda Giri. He will introduce us to the Kriya Yoga meditation tradition and also demonstrate some of the meditation techniques. As a way of introduction, Swami Sahajananda was born in a quaint village in Orissa, India. Swamiji was blessed to have darshan of Paramahansa Hariharanandaji while studying in college. The short meeting left an indelible mark on his mind, which prompted him to look for the master when he moved to USA for work and study. In 2000, he visited the homestead in Florida ashram to meet the great guru and with his blessings learned Kriya Yoga meditation. In 2010, with the blessings of Paramahansa Prajnanandaji Swamiji, left his work life and joined the monastery. In 2016, Paramahansaji blessed him and ordained him in the Giri order of monkhood with a name best suitable for his attitude, spontaneous joy. Sahajananda means one who rejoices in the joy of the self. Swamiji is based in Kriya Vedanta Gurukulam, the monastery in Joliet, Illinois. And so we are really very honored and privileged to listen to revered Swamiji today. There will be a Q&A at the end of his talk and before we transition into the meditation session. So please have your questions ready. And our live stream audience can post the questions in the chat window. And our on-site audience, they will also have an opportunity to talk to Swamiji and ask questions during the meet and greet session after this program. On that note, friends, let's welcome Swami Sahajanandaji Maharaj.
Om Sadashiva-samarambham Shyama-charana-madhyamam Asmadacharya-pariyantam Vande Guru-paramparam Shruti-smriti-purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat-padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Iswaraha Gururatmaiti Murtiveda Vibhagine Vyomavatyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. I bow to the Supreme Self. I bow to the Supreme Self as my Guru. I bow to the Supreme Self as the inner self of each of us. I bow to Sri Srima, Sri Thakur and Swamiji, and I bow to you all. Pranam, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be with you. Is this audible well? So, little introduction about myself. I come from the tradition of Kriya Yoga. Some of you might be knowing about it. Kriya Yoga as a philosophy or a practice came to West in 1920 by Paramahansa Yoganandaji. So he wrote a book called Autobiography of a Yogi in 1940s, and I am from that tradition. But today, I'll give you a little bit about where did this Kriya Yoga come from, the tradition, and a little bit about practice. In Vedic tradition, anything that we discussed, first our conversation should be, what is the need of it? So suppose we are studying something or practicing something, whether it is meditation or any kind of study. Why do we need it? That is the first question. The first question is, why do we need to practice yoga? Okay? Then the second question is, suppose we decide to practice yoga after being convinced that it is needed for me, then what should be the practice? The third question is, while I am practicing, what are the experiences or what are the difficulties? Both I will go through. I must know that. And I must prepare myself for that. And the fourth question is, once this yoga is established, that means I practice yoga and find it out, what will happen to me? These are not the questions I invented or I am making it up. We go back to the foundational text on yoga, which some of you might have heard of. It's called Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. Have you heard of this? Yoga Sutra. According to the philosophy of yoga, currently, this is the foundational text that we are aware of. That means we do not have any textual yogic text beyond this. There was a text which was called Hiranyagarbha Sutra, and Yoga Sutra is kind of a succession of that. We do not have access or visibility of the Hiranyagarbha Sutra. So today's discussion would be mostly based on that scripture, Yoga Sutra Patanjali. If you get a chance, I would request you, if you are interested in yoga, to read that systematically. So we will see what yoga is from that scripture. I would also request you, from a spiritual standpoint, there is in the Tattvabodha, Adi Shankara said, the two things you must take reference of before you start a practice. One, the teachings of the master, teachings of your guru. Second one is Vedanta Vakya. Here it means scripture. So two things we must take reference to. One, it's scriptural reference. Second is it must be validated by a practice. So we will look at these two. Is it clear? So when we go to Yoga Sutra has 4 chapters. The first chapter, as you can understand, is very simple. What is the objective of yoga? The second chapter is about how to practice yoga. The third chapter is when we practice it, what do we go through, what do we experience? And the fourth chapter is some esoteric philosophy of mind, and also what happens when somebody is established in yoga. These are the 4 chapters. The first one is called Samadhi Pada, second is called Sadhana Pada, third is called Vibhuti Pada, and fourth is called Kaivalya Pada. Now, what do you think is the objective of yoga? What could be the objective of yoga? Think about this. The objective should be universal. That means, irrespective of where we come from, irrespective of what stage of our life, it must be applicable. It's the first condition. So that means every one of us, irrespective of whether we believe in yoga or not, yoga should provide us something that we are looking for. First. Second condition is that it's not time bound. It's not like it was applicable 50 years ago, it is not applicable now, or it was not applicable 50 years ago, applicable now, may not be applicable in future, not so. That yoga must be applicable, it is timeless. There is a word called I forgot, which means that it is not time bound. So this teaching is not time bound. So universal, applicable to all, applicable every aspect of our life, that means every stages of our life, and it is not time bound. It was valid in past, present, is valid in present, and it would be valid in future. Can you think of, from your own experience, what was it? What is the goal of my, which is same as goal of yours? Which was the same goal was our fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers? Which will also be the same goal of future generation? Can you think of it? What could it be? So when I ask this question, many people get into philosophical answer. God realization, knowing self, all that. That may be, but fundamentally, what we are looking for, understand this. Fundamentally, please note this one. Fundamentally, what we are all looking for is semblance or equilibrium of the mind. That is the fundamental goal. Anything for that matter, if it disturbs the mind, then that thing must be discarded. So he defines yoga like this. He said, Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. He said, what is yoga? He said, let me define yoga for you. He said, yoga is, vritti is not thoughts. Some translation, they translate it as yoga is thoughtless state, but that's not so. So he said, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. That yoga is when mind does not modify itself. Usually, one of the manifestation of modification of the mind are thoughts, but there are others also. We will talk about it a little bit. So yoga is when the mind is not getting modified. That means there is equilibrium in the mind, which Sri Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita as samatvam, equanimity. As soon as the equanimity of the mind is achieved, then yoga happens. Whether it happens for a moment, whether it happens for a minute or hours, or continuously for 24 hours. The moment equanimity happens or equanimity stays, yoga happens. This is the definition of yoga. Any other definition must validate this. If somebody says yoga will give good health, then you should ask this question. Will it give also balance of mind? Suppose you are going there to practice some, currently asana exercises that is offered in here also, in our temple also we offer that. Suppose you see that by practicing that, your equilibrium of the mind is getting disturbed, then that must be discarded. Recently I came across a term, again I am forgetting that term. It means if you are very too particular on your food, I will eat this, I will not eat this, I will eat this much, then it's called a disease. Again, disturbances of the mind. The moment it disturbs your mind, then we are violating yoga. So yoga's definition is this. That which brings equilibrium to the mind. This is fundamental definition. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Then the question arises, if the mind is not getting modified, then does that mean that there are no thoughts? So many people, they say that, I ask them, what is meditation for you? They say, meditation is thoughtless state. Okay. What is meditation? Meditation is going beyond body. These are not very well established understanding. Meditation means, this is what he defines in the next. He says, the moment, how do you know whether the equilibrium has been achieved? He said the moment equilibrium of the mind is achieved, or the equanimity of the mind is achieved, he defines it. He says Patanjali is defining, tada drastuhu swarupe avasthanam. He said, then what happens? That the observer remains in himself or herself or itself. So the observer remains in itself. Today, I am the observer, For me, you are the observed. For you, you are the observer, I am the observed. Says Patanjali says that in this case, the moment equilibrium is achieved, tada drashtuhu, the observer remains in itself. This is actually what we call as self-realization, God-realization. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the Mundak Upanishad, I noted down the reference. In the Mundak Upanishad, this is the definition of who is a Kriyavan. Kriyavan means that one who practices Kriya. In Mundak Upanishad, if you want to take reference, 3.1.4, he says, Atma Kridaha, that individual who is playing with himself or herself. That means remaining in self, playing with self. That means I am playing with myself. Atma Kridaha, Atma Ratihi. Atma Rati means the one who is rejoicing in self. That means for me, for that individual, any object, matter, individual, place is not needed to get joy, to get contentment. Atmaratihi, Atma Kridaha, Atmaratihi, Kriyavan, Esha, Brahmavidam Varishtaha. That individual is called Kriyavan, that individual is called established in Kriya. Brahmavidam, that individual is realized a Brahman. Varishtaha, that individual is supreme. This is the definition. So says Patanjali says that the moment you bring equanimity to your mind, this is the objective. We'll come back to practice. The moment you bring equanimity to the mind, the observer remains in observation. The observer remains in itself. What it means is that today, when you open your eyes, the awareness goes out. It cannot be avoided. You cannot open your eyes and say, I will not see. That's not your choice. That's not our choice. If somebody is talking, we have no choice but to listen. If somebody is touching me, we have no choice but to know that it's touching unless we have some problem with the skin. So today, all our sense organs are taking the awareness out of me. So we must find a mechanism or a methodology or a practice where this awareness does not go out and remain in itself. If we can achieve that, then, says Patanjali says, then you are established in yoga. There is a question that arises. Suppose I am not established in yoga. Suppose I don't want equanimity. I really don't care about this equilibrium business. Then what? He says, then what will happen? What do you think? If equilibrium is not there in mind, if equanimity is not there in mind, what happens? In the chapter 2, he says, there would be something called dukkha. That means pain would be inevitable. So the only way pain can be avoided is by bringing equanimity to the mind. This is the, what you call, the need point of ours. None of us want pain in our life. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, let me get some pain today. It's very so nice. Let me cry today. No, none of us. So pain is inevitable, we have seen in our life. And we have tried different mechanisms to solve the pain. We are hungry, we take food. We don't feel good about it. We have company, friends, families. Health is not good, we take medicine. Emotionally we are not good, we go and take a walk, go to vacation, do some things. Intellectually, some emptiness is coming, we join a discussion like this. So we have find 5 different mechanisms within that parameter to solve this problem. But here is a proposal. This is the proposal of Vedic rishis all across, that contentment or joy or avoidance of pain cannot be achieved through external objects. It will be only temporarily ephemeral. The only way it can be understood or it can be realized is through remaining in self. Another word that has been used called atmastha. Atmastha, atmakrida, atmaratihi. These are the words, various words have been used. And this is called self-realization. The question arises is that, am I not there? What if I am already there? So to describe that, because this is a conversation between, says Patanjali as the guru, and we are the disciple. We said, Baba, what if we are there already? Oh, you are not there, because check the second point. He says, Vritti sarupyam itaratra. He said, if you look at yourself, your awareness is always connected to your thoughts. So your thought goes here, you go there. You look at somebody you don't like, and immediately thought arises that this person had done this to me, you are angry. Thought goes here, you feel happy. Vritti sarupyam itaratra. Otherwise, he says, you are continuously engaged with the mind. The moment the mind stabilizes, the equilibrium comes, then only awareness can be disconnected or can be looked differently or can be realized differently. This is not a knowledge. This is not jnanam. This is why it is called a realization in English. I'll give a little bit of an example between knowledge and realization. How do you differentiate that? Suppose you enter a room and you see a crystal ball. You see a ball. You don't know it's a crystal ball. And it looks red. And somebody asks you, what is the color of this ball? The answer is red. That is knowledge. I saw, I perceived. This is called indirect knowledge. Pratyaksha jnanam means I observe the ball, it looks red. Hence the color of the ball is red. That is knowledge. Now I I went near the ball. I saw that the ball is actually a crystal ball. And next to it there is a little red rose. And the red rose, through reflection and refraction, both of them, is creating this color hue as red. I have not touched anything. I have not touched the ball, neither I have touched the rose. The ball still looks red. I looked at it and I realized that this ball is getting the color from the rose. Intellectually, what I did is I removed the rose in mind, not physically. Intellectually, I removed the rose from that place and concluded very clearly that the color of the ball is coming from the rose. So now you ask me, what is the color of the ball? What would be my answer? It is clear. Look, I have not seen the ball as a clear. I did not verify it either. This is realization. So realization does not mean that I must experience it. Realization means that intellectually I have fully understood this fact. So in this case, when the sage is proposing us that through the equilibrium of the mind, this awareness will remain in itself, This is first we understand through these words. Then in our meditation, we systematically practice and get this realization that the awareness and the mind are two different things. This is fundamentally the principle of yoga. Anything you practice, whether you practice study, whether you practice devotion, like chanting God's name, worships, anything. If this is not happening, then we should know that there is something I am not doing correctly. So, this is the objective of yoga. I hope it is clear. Now that the objective is clear to me, my father has convinced me that being a doctor is your objective, and I am convinced. My next question is, how do I become one? So what to practice? So in this book, Yoga Sutra, by the way, the book Yoga Sutra, which is the foundational philosophical book on yoga, do you know how big that book is? The book is 1 page. I carry that book. These are explanation. Like if you just take the sutras, it is literally 1 page. If you go downstairs, there would be a book called Mantra Puspam, and at the last part of it, Yoga Sutra is there. I believe it is in the small book which I have, 3 pages. So like a large book like this, it would be like 1 page. Whole philosophy is here. So now that I am convinced that yoga is something I am looking for, what to do? So says Patanjali, as the Guru, provides methodology. He says, one methodology is observe your mind, observe your intellect, be intellectually steady. There is one methodology, analyze your dream, analyze your sleep. I do not know how that works, but there is a methodology. Supna Nidra Jnanam, Supna Nidra Alambanamba. There is another methodology through breath control. There is another methodology, complete surrender to God, which is the most easiest method, and again the most difficult method. Surrender to God works as long as things are going good for me. The moment it goes opposite, I question that. Like that, he has provided multiple methods. Think about the beauty of the teaching. Then he says, Yatha Abhimata Dhyanadva. If you are not agreeing to any of these methods, or you think it is not suitable for you, go ahead and find a methodology for yourself. So these are the methodology he gives. Then out of compassion, in the second chapter, the chapter of practice, he says, I will give you an integrated method of practice. Why it is integrated? That means a practice that can be taken up by anybody at any point of time. Devotion cannot be taken up by anybody. Study or intellectual discussion, intellectual analysis cannot be taken up by anybody. My mind should be ready, my mind should be prepared. We understand that, we see, if you really see, and as Swami Vivekananda said, most of our devotion is actually termed as emotion or showing of emotion. Most of our devotion or expression of devotion are nothing but emotion. Ramana Maharshi said, what did he say? Stillness of mind, this is what he said, Ramana Maharshi. Stillness of mind is bhakti, that is devotion. That is also mukti, that is also freedom. Stillness of mind. So this says Patanjali said that I will give you an integrated method. Anybody from any point of time can take this practice, and he termed that method as Kriya Yoga. So he defines Kriya Yoga like this. He says, this is the first sutra from chapter 2. Tapaha Swadhyaya Ishwara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha. Tapa means some practice of meditation, self-discipline. Swadhyaya means, excuse me, self-study. Self-study means not only studying books, study of the self. I will look at myself, analyze myself. So I will do some practice, discipline, meditation. I will analyze myself and Ishwara Pranidhana. I will surrender to God. These together constitute as Kriya Yoga. This is the definition of Kriya Yoga from Sage Patanjali. That means we must have a practice which has self-discipline, meditation, self-analysis, a mechanism to self-analyze, and also should inculcate, should encourage to understand what is surrender to God. These three must be given to us with respect to practice. Not that we are told, do self-discipline, self-analyze and surrender to God. That's not what the sage is telling. He said this must be taught to us because it's a practice. If we do this practice, what will happen? He says, when you practice this, that means when you learn this from your teacher, it should bring you two things. Samadhi bhavanartha, klesha tanu karanarthascha. How many of you heard the word samadhi? Samadhi. What is samadhi? Samadhi means the person is sitting, has no body consciousness. That's what we have understanding of samadhi, isn't it? Actual meaning of samadhi is samahita dhi. Dhi means understanding. Dhi means knowledge. Dhi means intellect. Dhi means full understanding. Dhimana. Dhimana means the one which has intellect, knowledge. Samahita dhi means that individual which has perfected this knowledge. Samahita dhi, samadhi. Samadhi bhavanartha. This individual is going to perfect the knowledge, perfect the understanding of what? Of self, of myself. Samadhi bhavanartha. So this practice must bring that understanding of self in a clear, unambiguous, full understanding of that. So this practice must bring that. Klesha tanu karanarthascha. It must bring, tanu means tappering. You take a stone and rub it on another stone, what happens? The stone tappers. Similarly, the practice must bring down difficulties in our life. Now think about, what are the difficulties we are facing in life? Can you tell me one? And what could be the most fundamental difficulties in our life? We may say ignorance. We don't know what is ignorance. That is not something we can correlate to. It is the fundamental, but we have difficulty to correlate to ignorance. There is another difficulty, klesha. Klesha means difficulties or pain points. The second one is asmita, ego. But we have also difficulty to correlate that ego is a difficult process. Ego is a thing not to have. It's difficult. Can you think of what is the most painful point that we correlate to? Think about. In the Yoga Sutra it is called abhinivesha. It is the fear of death, fear of non-existence. From all aspects, from physical point of view, from mental point of view, from intellectual point of view. Anytime, anyone who comes at us, physically, mentally, intellectually, what do? We try to protect ourselves. The mechanism can be running away, the mechanism can be anger, there can be many mechanisms. So he says, there are 5 pain points or difficulties. Klesha is pain. We all carry. What are those 5? Ignorance, individual ego, liking, disliking, and fear of death, or fear of not existing, fear of vanishing. That's why when we give an idea to somebody, we propose suppose in a discussion, I gave an idea and that idea is not accepted or contradicted, I get angry. Why? Because my intellectual aspect is being questioned. So he says, when you practice Kriya Yoga, these things will slowly go down. Does it make sense? Is it clear? So we must have a practice which brings fear down, which brings attachment down, which brings disliking, hatred down, which brings individual ego or individuality in a solid way down. And ignorance, we'll leave that for now because we don't understand what ignorance is anyway. He said that the practice of Kriya Yoga must bring this. This Kriya Yoga has been practiced, as we saw in Mundaka Upanishad. It is also in the Adhyatma Ramayana. If you study, Lakshmana is asking Sri Rama that teach me something that will bring me God realization, and Sri Rama brings him these teachings of Kriya Yoga. In Upanishads and in many other places, I will give you 3 places in Brahma Sutra, the reference of it. When you practice Kriya Yoga, as the sage Patanjali said, fear of death or fear of non-existence, liking, disliking, what else? Individuality slowly must come down. And this comes down when the mind slowly enters to a state of calmness. In the Brahma Sutra it is said that when the mind is becoming calm, inwardly or internally, we experience 3 things. First one is kampanat. There would be sensation in the body, we call it divine vibration. Kampana, inside the body, inside the spine, especially inside the cranium, we experience that. The more the mind becomes calm, the more we will experience that. Then we will know that our practice is bringing benefits. Jyoti darshanat. The more we practice, the more we bring the mind to calmness, we will see, experience inner light, Atma Jyotihi. So the inner light or the inner illumination would be visible. And it is not something an imagination. In fact, our Gurudev said, meditation is not imagination, hallucination, thinking. Meditation is pure perception, something that I completely experience. So Jyoti Darshanat, inner awareness of divine vibration, inner awareness of light. Third one, listening or hearing, it is called Pranava Shabdat. That means when we meditate and we bring awareness, we bring the mind to a state of equilibrium, as we progress, we will hear divine sound within. So, some of you might be remembering, what is the conch of Sri Krishna? What is the name of it? Huh? What, anybody? Panchajanya. Panchajanya Hrishikesha Devadattam Dhananjaya. It's called Panchajanya. 5 different kinds of sound. This sound in meditation is audible. Of conch, of bell, of flute, of bumblebee, which we call as vringa, and sound of rain falling. There are some other sounds also come. Sound of water falling, rain sound, mosquito humming, air flowing through a empty pipe. These are the sound coming from Omkara. So in the Yoga Sutra he says, Om, in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Om iti eka akshara brahma. In Yoga Sutra he says, Tasya vachaka pranava. This divine sound is God. So which we call as Nada Sravana. The more we bring the mind to equilibrium, these are the experiences we'll go through. And this experience will do 2 things. First thing, it will bring us joy. Second thing, it will bring us inspiration. So with that, since I come from a practice tradition, I gave you a little bit of understanding of the fundamentals, philosophy, that yoga fundamentally means to bring mind to a state of equilibrium. Why? So that the awareness can remain in itself. And this equilibrium of the mind can be achieved by many, many means, as long as you know what it is. And here, from Yoga Sutra, he gives a technique called Kriya Yoga, which is an integrated technique. That means it has 3 aspects: tapaha, swadhyaya and Ishvara pranidhana. Tapo is actually, we call it Karma Yoga, Swadhyaya we call it Jnana Yoga, and Ishvara pranidhana we call it Bhakti Yoga. Integrated methodology of practice. Through that, what we will achieve? We will achieve Samahita Dhi, clear understanding, and Klesha Tanu means we will be able to slowly see few things going down in me. One of the things is fear of death, liking, disliking, and ego. Of course, ignorance will come at last. How do I know my practice is stable or steady? 3 experiences I will get. Divine sound I will hear internally. In fact, in our practice, the practice is done by closing the ear or putting some earplug. So I hear some divine sound. Then I see divine light, Atma Jyoti, Antar Jyoti Darshana, Nada Sravana, Antar Jyoti Darshana, and the third one is Kampana or vibration inside this body, inside the head, especially on the top of the head, inside the spine, where the chakras are, where the padmas are, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, so we experience some sensation there. This is how the practice is put together. Kriya Yoga can be practiced only through initiation, and Kriya Yoga does not contradict any faith or tradition because it's an internal practice. In fact, our Gurudev said, I don't teach you what to study or what to believe. I teach you how best you can study. So I cannot teach you Kriya Yoga without initiation, but I will teach you a technique that I am allowed to teach you. You can practice it at home. And whomever your Ishta is, whomever you consider as your master, guru or God, keeping him or her in focus, you please practice. So with that, I'll show you, I'll demonstrate the practice. Is it okay? This is not working. Thank you, thank you. So this is a practice. If you can sit on the floor, well and good. But if you can sit on a chair and do it, I will first demonstrate you. First I will show you, we call it, it's very simple. Slow, long, deep inhalation, mimicking the breath that we take in deep sleep. So this is how the breath is. I'm going to do pure, slow, long and deep inhalation. You please observe this. Slow, long, deep breath. The Gurus say that the faster the breath, the mind is more restless. The slower the breath, the more calm the mind. So this is a breath, please observe. Second one is, we call it breath watch. As we are taking the breath, there is a little friction inside the nostril. We can really feel it without any difficulty. As soon as you feel it, you take God's name. You can take God's name, Ishta name. You can say Shiva, Rama. You can take Thakur's name, Ma's name, any name. As soon as it enters, you take that name in the breath. So connect the mind, breath, and do japam. This is actually little before ajapa japa. So along with the breath, take God's name. When the breath is going in, take God's name. When the breath is going out, take God's name. This is a concentration technique. Third thing is a little spinal exercise. This helps to bring the mind to concentration. So sitting at home like this, slowly bend, keeping the hips on the ground, bend like this, without raising the hips, not like this. Stay here and then practice the breath watching and then slowly come back. This is simpler. There is a little bit of complexities involved also to go right and left. That I will teach some other time. So this is the practice. I will guide you 10 minutes of meditation. When you are in chair, you just bend like this. So the spine should bend. So please sit straight. With eyes closed. Take a slow, long, deep inhalation. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. exhale. Normal breath. Bring your attention to the breath. Normal breath. In every inhalation, take God or Guru's name, Ishta's name. It is said, name of God, name of Guru or name of Ishta is itself a mantra. Guru Nama is also a mantra. In every inhalation, take God and Guru's name. In every exhalation, take God and Guru's name. Take a slow, long, deep inhalation. Inhale. Hold the breath. Slowly bend as much as the body is permitting. And after bending fully, exhale. Normal breath. Remain in that bending position. Here, bring attention to the breath. In inhalation, God's name. In exhalation, God's name, Guru's name. Inhale, hold, very slowly sit up. After sitting up, then exhale. Observe the breath. Observing the breath means aware of the breath moving inside the nostril and take God's name along with the breath. Again, take a slow, long, deep inhalation. Inhale. Holding the breath in the front, holding the breath. Slowly bend forward and exhale. Remain in that position. Normal breath. Again, bring attention to the breath. Take God's name in inhalation and exhalation. Take a slow, long, deep inhalation. Inhale. Holding the breath, slowly sit up. After sitting up, exhale. Now, we'll practice slow, long, deep inhalation 12 times. In every inhalation, mentally, take God or Guru's name. Inhale with God's name. Exhale God's name. Inhale. Exhale God's name. Inhale, take God's name. Exhale with God's name. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale with God's name. Inhale, take God's name. Exhale, God's name. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, take God's name. Exhale, take God's name. Inhale, exhale, inhale, take God's name. Exhale, take God's name. Inhale, exhale. Now, normal breath. Bring awareness between two eyebrows. Steady look inside. Feel the breath and take God's name in the breath. Maintain calmness. Remain with the breath. Remain with the breath. Remain with the name of God and Gurus. Om Atma Gurave Namaha. I bow to the self within as the Guru. Om Atmane Namaha. I bow to the inner self. Om Paramatmane Namaha. I bow to the Supreme Self. Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. I bow to my Guru, his Guru, the lineage of Gurus, lineage of Masters. May with the blessings of God and Gurus, blessings of Sri Sri Thakur, Sri Sri Ma and Swamiji, may there be deep devotion, deep desire to realize truth. May there be no inauspiciousness in my life and in anyone's life. May there be auspiciousness, auspicious thoughts in me for everyone. May the blessings of God and Gurus be upon us all. Om Tat Sat Om. I bow to God and Gurus, and I bow to God and Gurus in you all. You can slowly open your eyes. Thank you very much, and I hope we had a little bit discussion on the fundamentals of meditation and little practice. So thank you. Swami.
The Kriya Yoga Swamijis, they are very friendly with the Vedanta societies. Every time, and we never feel that they are different. Whenever we want anything, immediately we approach them, and that there are some brothers out there, we can always go to them, talk to them, invite them. So I invited him, and so nicely he taught. Nowadays, when the people are so stressed everywhere, right from the childhood, people are terribly stressed. Everywhere, different type of things. So this meditation can help. The wonderful way, very simple way he was teaching. I thank you very much for this, for coming, and I hope you have also enjoyed, learned. And it was online, so hundreds of people are also observing this, and they are listening it. Thank you very much. That there are three things are there for Kriya Yoga. In Bhagavad Gita, it is there. So we will discuss some other day about the Kriya Yoga. You know the Dhyana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. There is another yoga is there, Kriya Yoga. So this Kriya Yoga, the three things you have to unite for that. But now we will go to our another hall, Naimisharanya hall, and we will have some little snacks and coffee, tea, and you can meet and greet the Swami. Please come. Thank you very much.